So Dragon Age the Veilguard has come and gone like a fart in the wind, and this particular video game was helmed by someone called Corinne Busche, who was a director over at BioWare for this particular video game. You guys already know the entire history. Now, unfortunately, I have to give you the bad news that I've shared on stream before, but I never got around to actually doing a full video, and that is the recent rumor, and it's a bad one, that Corinne Busche, the guy who led Dragon Age the Veilguard into the dumps, is apparently going to be the one that is going to lead Wizards of the Coast's brand new team into making, supposedly, Baldur's Gate 4. Now, I think this situation would probably unite both the left and the right because Baldur's Gate 3 was a video game that was loved by everybody. It was a video game that gave everybody the choice to be whatever the hell they wanted, whether you were a woke psychopath or whether you were a right-wing zealot, whatever the case may be, you found your home in Baldur's Gate 3 for the most part. Now, unfortunately, it looks like the person who decided to take all the real RPG elements out of Dragon Age and turn it into a trauma dump for their writers, now it looks like this person is the one who is going to be in charge of the brand new Baldur's Gate 4. So let's get into this article, guys, from That Park Place. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. Now, I know Corinne Busche's name comes with a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess just anger or perhaps just overall disgust. I really don't know what word to use here, but Corinne Busche's name, being associated with Wizards of the Coast raised a big red flag for me initially. Now, when I first heard of this news, I thought that Corinne Busche was going to be part of the game Exodus. That's what I thought. I thought that this person was going to be the leader over at that particular video game, but it seemed like that game already had a game director, so there was no reason for them to have a job there necessarily at that studio. Now, apparently, Wizards of the Coast has a brand new studio that they haven't announced what game they're working on yet, and a lot of people are speculating that it's going to be Baldur's Gate 4, and here's the reason why. If you guys are unaware, Larian Studios was the one who did Baldur's Gate 3, and they did a fantastic job with this video game. Larian Studios had a massive falling out with Wizards of the Coast, and that is pretty much evidence over what Larian Studios CEO said in his speech during the Game Developers Choice Awards, which I'll tell you the following. He openly criticized them, not necessarily by name, but he criticized corporate greed and its detrimental impact on creativity. And if everybody knows anything, Baldur's Gate 3 was a highly creative video game. Like I said, you could pretty much be and do whatever the hell you want within reason. Then he stated at the place, he stated, greed has been fucking this whole thing up for so long. Since I've started, I've been fighting publishers my entire life, and I keep on seeing the same mistakes over and over and over. Now, I will agree that we have been noticing that corporate greed has been a big issue for a long time. We talk about that as well. We don't just talk about wokeness in video games. We talk about corporate greed and overall how terrible it is for the audience, for the gamer, like the person who's actually buying the product. We talk about companies like EA and Ubisoft. They want to nickel and dime the gamer into any little thing they possibly can. We talk about microtransactions, how some of them are so predatory, it's ridiculous. So then it says, if you could read between the lines, this could very well have been a subtle message at their former partners, which were Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, possibly hinting at why Larian chose not to develop a sequel despite the immense success and acclaim of Baldur's Gate 3. Now, keep in mind, guys, they had already started work on Baldur's Gate 4. To my knowledge, Larian Studios started work on the video game, and they just flat out dropped it, right? After some sort of, some sort of backlash between them and Wizards of the Coast, they completely dropped all of it, and they said, screw it, we're out, and it was a massive falling out. It's worth remembering that Swen was the backbone of Baldur's Gate 3's project. There have been long-standing rumors that Wizards of the Coast had little idea what to do with Baldur's Gate's IP. Initially, they reportedly showed minimal interest and only handed it to Larian as a quick cash grab. However, once Baldur's Gate 3 became one of the most beloved and critically acclaimed video games, at least in the eyes of many, Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro seemingly began interfering in future plans, asserting more control over the decision-making process. And that always happens, ladies and gentlemen. I want to be very clear. Unfortunately, it gets to a point where you get overly corporatized and the passion gets pushed all the way to the wayside. And that's the big issue here. We need video games made by gamers now. We don't really have that anymore. We used to have that in the past, which is why so many video games were beloved, especially for their storytelling. But now we have video games that are made by corporations, and they're just not the same level of passion. And sure, every once in a while, they might have a passionate employee. Every once in a while, they might have a team that's actually passionate about what they're making. But that's few and far between. And even if they have a passionate team, it doesn't matter, because what ends up happening is corporations start taking over and their greed starts taking over. And then eventually they want to nickel and dime the gamer and they want to make everything anti-consumer. It really does suck, but that's just where it's at. So after Larian Studios ended its relationship with Wizards of the Coast, reportedly moved on to develop its own new IP, rumored to be a sci-fi RPG, Wizards of the Coast began looking for new developers for its Baldur's Gate sequel. But from what we gathered, that process didn't last long, as it seems they decided in the end, along with Hasbro probably, to create a subsidiary game studio, Skeleton Key, and have Baldur's Gate 4 developed in-house. Now, this would not shock me in the slightest. If they begin to develop Baldur's Gate 4 in-house, that would allow them to save a ton of money by essentially removing the middleman, right? They're going to remove the middleman and be the person who's actually doing it and developing it. Now, here's where it gets dicey, okay? Here's where it becomes a big issue. The dilemma here is the people who have been hired into this company might not be the best team for Baldur's Gate. As we all know, BioWare, once a great video game studio, went on to make Dragon Age Veilguard, which was an abysmal game for the Dragon Age franchise, both among gamers and in terms of sales. The numbers speak for themselves. It was led by Corinne Busche, the game director at BioWare, a self-described advocate of DEI, who also pushed for top surgery scars in video games, something Busche also implemented in The Sims 4 while working for Maxis. The game was a financial disaster, although, according to rumors, an expected disaster by EA. Nevertheless, these decisions didn't sit well with fans of the franchise, which was clearly reflected in the sales. Busche was recently hired by Skeleton Key, and according to leaks first reported by Grums and Smash AT, to make matters worse, Busche was hired not just as a developer, but as a game director, which that right there is what got people thinking and putting two and two together and realizing, oh, this guy might actually be working on Baldur's Gate 4, which would be a drastic difference. I'm telling you right now, ladies and gentlemen, as much as I loved Baldur's Gate 3 and I thought it was a fantastic RPG, ultimately, this is going to lead us down the rabbit hole of, wow, this is not going to be a proper sequel to Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 4 will most likely be a massive, massive change and a massive failure because of it. Simply because I don't think it's going to be made with the same level of creativity, number one. I don't think it's going to be made with the same level of care, number two. And I just don't think that they have the skill level like Larian Studios does in order to make a proper Baldur's Gate 4. I would have much rather seen a Baldur's Gate 4 from Larian Studios instead of a Baldur's Gate 4 from an unknown studio with a developer that, well, I should say a director that people don't like, right? I don't get it. Why would you even bother doing this? How greedy could you possibly be to give up all that insane money that they made from Baldur's Gate 3? And keep in mind, Baldur's Gate 3 made an insane amount of money. That game made so much money, it's ridiculous. And they're giving it all up just so they could develop it in-house to try to be cheaper on their cost. But then they're going to hire a developer, a director that is known for destroying RPG franchises. Why would you do that? I don't know. Not exactly the smartest move to make. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.